Welcome back, everyone. For you, it might not feel like a very long time, but for me, it's actually been a couple weeks. I very excitingly was able to take a vacation with my husband and some family. We were busy sightseeing and traveling in Europe for about 10 days, which was so fun and a much needed break from furniture refinishing and house renovating. That's why there was a little bit of a gap in content for a couple weeks last month. And I actually, unfortunately, took a bit of a tumble on those beautiful cobblestone roads and sprained my ankle. It is just a sprain, and it's been a couple weeks now, so while it's still tender, I am definitely going to be babying it a little bit, and I did take an additional week off just to really let it rest up. But now that I'm feeling a little bit better, a little bit more stable on my feet, I am diving back in this week on a super exciting project. I found this piece at my local thrift store. It did have a matching nightstand that went along with it. I almost picked up the nightstand to go along with this, but it was just a single nightstand, and this is such a unique look that unless somebody only needs one nightstand, I really don't think it was going to be that useful to refinish along with this piece. So I did leave that one there at the thrift store and just grabbed this really long, beautiful dresser. So surprisingly, this one does not have a maker's mark anywhere. I can tell that it is very, very well made. So I had a sneaking suspicion perhaps it had a maker's mark at some point and it had just been removed. There are some markings on the back, and I can just tell from the craftsmanship, all of the details are really well done. Even the side panels on this piece are a little unique. So I did a reverse Google image search, and it looks like this is an American of Martinsville piece, which if you know anything about vintage furniture, you know that that's a very, very good brand. But even if it hadn't been name brand, I still would have scooped it up anyway. It's got really fun features. I love these handles. They're so fun and unique. And I think that they will clean up really, really nicely and be a beautiful brass finish by the time I'm done. Overall, this piece really does not have much damage at all. There's a little bit of damage on one of the drawer fronts, very minor, and then there is a section of the top that looks like maybe had a little bit of water damage. Just the finish is peeling up, crackling ever so slightly. Besides that, this blonde finish is in pretty good shape. I mean, it does definitely have those suspected scratches and small minor gouges here and there just from being on this piece for decades and decades. But I have a sneaking suspicion there's going to be some beautiful wood and veneer underneath this finish. There usually is. And by the time I'm done with this, it's going to look like a completely different piece of furniture. So come along with me this week as I dust off the cobwebs and get back into some furniture refinishing. I am so excited to grab a big piece of furniture and really dive back in. I think I'm ready to jump right into this project. I do have to note, if you hear some construction noises outside, they are repaving my road by my house, which is nice. We'll get a new road, but oh my goodness, it's going to be noisy for the next couple of months, the foreseeable future, because it takes some time, and I understand that. So if you'll be a little bit patient if you do hear some noises, it's out of my control. But anyway, I am going to go ahead and take all these drawers out, and I will label each one of these drawers. So typically the way I like to do it is right, center, left, 1, 2, 3. You can do it however you like, but it's just an easy way that I do it. And of course, it's not a foolproof method. Sometimes people have the drawers all mixed up, but these seem to be sliding pretty well in the slots that they're already in, so I'm going to assume they're in the right position. It's always a little bit of a puzzle when they're mixed up and you have to try to put one in one side, take it back out, try them in all the different slots. So it's always a perk when they seem to be correct. So I actually just noticed somebody had the exact same idea that I had. They labeled each one. I'm still gonna label them and label them a little bit larger and in marker on the back, but good to know they are in the right spot. I've said it before and I'll say it every single time. Flathead screws are the worst. I always seem like I have to try a bunch of different screwdrivers before I find one that works, and then it's still not a guarantee. They're just so difficult to take in and out. And they also strip really easily too, which is a problem. And then when they're in at a slight angle, gosh, it's nearly impossible. I'm trying my best not to strip these. Oh my gosh. I think I'm gonna pivot and try to take the hinge off the door itself at this point. Finally, just one more screw on the top. All right, finally, it's safe to say, I think I'm gonna replace these flattened screws and I'm just gonna get some new screws. Something that's a little bit easier. Now I do definitely want to label these hinges so that I put them back on the same door and the same position as what I took them off from. So this door is the left door and this is the top hinge. So I'm gonna say LT. So I was successful at getting 2 of the hinges off, but the 2 on the right door are still stuck on there and they're giving me trouble. So what I'm gonna try to do is take the whole dresser off my staging wall and flip it on its side so that I can use gravity to help me really apply a lot of pressure to try to get those screws up. I really don't want them snapping off in there. That is the risk you run while trying to force screws out, but these ones are really stuck. When I tipped this piece up on its side, something really cool fell out. It's a dime, a US currency, and it is from 1915. It looks completely different than the dimes that are in circulation today. Let me know down below, are any of you guys coin enthusiasts? Is this worth anything? I don't know, but it's a really neat piece of history. These 2 separate bases do look like they should come off pretty easily. They're just held on with flathead screws again. But I think if I take them off, I'll have a much easier time stripping the old finish off and staining them as well. Usually pieces like this are not glued down in place. It's just, there's glue holding the joints together, but they usually come off pretty easy just by loosening these screws. pretty simple. Now it's time to go ahead and take these handles off and prep the drawers for stripping this finish off. I am going to be using a chemical stripper. I did test a little patch on one of the other drawers, and acetone works as well on this finish. However, I find that these blonde finishes can be quite messy with acetone because there's multiple layers of color. So I think I'm just going to go right in with a stripper. And these drawers are completely a solid wood construction. You can tell by flipping them upside down a lot of times. And if you look at the bottom unfinished edge, you can usually see what they're made up of. So this one in particular is a piece of veneer on the back side, a piece of veneer on the front side, and in the middle is a solid piece of wood, probably a cheaper piece of wood. The front looks like, from the piece that I stripped, it might be walnut, but I was reading online that the American of Martinsville did a lot with mahogany in this style. I'm kind of hoping that it's walnut and not mahogany, just because mahogany leans so red. But we will see. A lot of times they had different finishes and different wood species for different pieces. And if it is a walnut, hopefully all of this trim detail is also something similar enough that when it stains up, it won't stain too differently. If it's something completely different and it does stain differently, I can always try to do some toning on it, but this would be a lot of trim pieces to have to tone because each one of the drawer fronts has this border that runs around it. So I'll just have to see what it's made of. Not to mention the legs. The legs also have a lot of detail. Circling back to these bases, there are these brass caps on the bottom of each of the legs, and I do want to remove them just so that they don't get damaged during the stripping and sanding process. And I also want to buff and clean them up. They're just held on with little brass nails. I'm trying to pull these nails out straight so that I don't bend them. There we go. I'm also going to take these metal caps off and replace them with the nylon ones. They're just a little bit worn, and something fresh will be a little bit nicer. I have one side completely stripped, and now that I have all these front details stripped, I can go ahead and flip it onto its other side. I have a blanket down just to protect the side that I already have all the finish off of. For me, I find it easiest to have something up on its side like this, even though, as you can see, it's taller than me. I'll get on a step stool and I will strip it with this surface sitting horizontal so that I'm not fighting gravity and having all the drips come down. I can let the product sit on the surface and really do its work and ease through that finish. So I do have to admit, I did a 180 and pivoted, and I'm using acetone, at least to strip some of the more minor details on these pieces. I still used the chemical stripper on the tops, the sides, the big areas, but on these doors and maybe even the drawers, I'm not sure yet. I'll probably use a combination. I am going to use the acetone. Now, it's just as messy as I knew that it would be. It's just kind of creates a really, really loose product and dries really fast. So it can be a little messy, but I'm just using a lot of paper towels and a lot of acetone and wiping it back pretty quickly after applying it. But oh my God, look at how beautiful this wood grain is. Seriously, this was hiding behind this, I'm sorry, ugly blonde finish. I'm really not a fan of these blonde finishes because, case in point, it hides some of the most stunning wood grain. Like, you would not have known that this was here. This pretty walnut. It's the next day and I have the majority of the stripping behind me. All that I have left are these 6 drawer faces, and I do think I'm gonna do a combination of 2 things to get this finish up. This large flat surface, I'm going to use my thicker, more robust chemical stripper. It just scrapes really easily on flat surfaces, so I can apply a liberal amount, wait maybe 15-20 minutes, scrape it back, and then go in with my acetone and clean up all of this edging detail and the details that would be a little bit harder to get to without using my wire bristle brush or lots and lots of steel wool. I think just a combination of those 2 things are probably going to be my best bet. That's it. I finally have everything all stripped. It always takes a long time to strip a piece of furniture, especially something this large, but I'm so happy with the results. It's a really, really beautiful piece of furniture with beautiful wood grain. As I expected, there is a combination of different wood species. There's the walnut veneer on the top, on the drawer fronts, on the doors, and a lighter wood along the trim and the accent pieces. The legs are also made of that lighter material. I'm just going to embrace it and lean into it. I'm still planning on staining this piece, but the different woods will most likely take the stain a little differently, but I still think it's going to be a beautiful result at the end. My next plan of action is to take my sanders and go ahead and just very lightly smooth sand everything, get up any of that residual stain that might have been clinging on from the old finish, and just smooth everything out to prep it for that staining process. With it being summer and as hot of a climate as I live in, I finally broke down and I had to pull out my trusty portable AC. It is cranking in here, but it always makes me a little bit sad because that means I have to work with the door closed and the bright lights on just so that I can see what I'm doing. But it's definitely needed in the heat that I live in. I am like dying over here, and it's that much harder when I have to wear the mask to protect my lungs and stuff from either fumes or the dust. So hopefully I'll get a little bit of relief with this AC. We will see. I can now start prepping the piece for staining it. This is going to be exciting. I always like this process when you start to get the color back on and it just completely transforms. I'm going to start with the doors, the bases, the drawers, and then I'll work on the base of the dresser. It is on its back right now, so I want to take it step by step. I am going to be using this early American color. I've used it before. It's a really beautiful color. I like that one quite a bit. I want to stain the bases first, the legs, those two separate bases, and then stain the base of the dresser and reattach them and then flip it upright. I think that will be the easiest. That way I can top coat them on the piece after the stain has completely dried. I think that will be the easiest solution going forward, but let's get started. I still cannot get over how beautiful these doors are and the fact that they were covered. I know I mentioned it before, it still always baffles me when the manufacturers choose to do something like that. After a bit of a messy start to the day, I'm ready to start top coating this piece. It's had sufficient amount of time to dry, and I want to make sure to have a absolutely beautiful and flawless top coat to match the rest of this piece. I'm pretty happy with the way everything stained up, and I know that satin finish is going to provide that beautiful luster that this piece is missing right now. All in all, I did a total of 3 coats on this piece, sanding very lightly in between. Getting this first coat on really showed what this piece was going to look like in the end, and I was so excited. Time for one more satisfying change. I have added all of this hardware to my special hardware boiling pot, added 50% vinegar, 50% water, and boiled it on the stove for about 20 minutes or so. And now I can take my barkeeper's friend and really polish this up and get it shiny again. I love this process. What a transformation. A couple of light coats of lacquer and these brass vintage handles and knobs are ready to go, good as new. Finally, it's one of the exciting parts. I get to start putting the jewelry back on the dresser. I'm gonna start with these brass caps. This piece is very, very heavy, especially with the drawers in, so it's so much easier to do this before I have everything all assembled. I did go ahead and order some new hinges. The old hinges, honestly, they got damaged while trying to take those screws out. Those flathead screws were awful to get out, and it ended up bending a couple of the hinges. So I just ordered some new ones. Now, I was having problems finding brass colored ones in the size that I needed. So I had to get some silver colored ones, and what I'll do is I'll just use Rub and Buff on them. It's such a small little amount that shows once the doors are installed that it's not going to be a problem. And it will be nice to have new hinges as well. I ordered in some wallpaper, a print that I've used before. It's just a neutral plaid. I know it's not the most exciting print, but I think that it will match a lot of different decor, a lot of different aesthetics, and it's neutral, so it matches this dresser perfectly. But before I install that, I want to make sure to clean everything. I'm going to vacuum out the interior of the drawer, clean everything, and install the hardware as well. And with that, I'm all wrapped up. I officially have another one in the books, and this one is a special one. It's a beautiful, beautiful end result. But let's reverse time and take a look at what I started with. A big, beautiful, and very heavy blonde dresser that had all that vintage charm hiding behind a dusty, dirty, and dingy coat of finish. I didn't exactly know what was going to be underneath, but I had a sneaking suspicion it was going to be beautiful no matter what was under there. And I'm so glad I gave it a chance. Let's take a look at that finished product. Wow, just absolutely wow. I love this piece. I know I say that I really do fall in love with almost all of the pieces that I finish, but this one was a complete surprise, completely different look. I don't even think it looks like the same piece that I started out with. I had a little bit of reservations between the walnut and the solid wood trim staining up and matching properly, but it actually matches very, very well. There are those subtle changes in the tones, but I think that they complement each other and they do not distract the eye just because they're a little bit different. I think that is the way the manufacturer designed this piece, and I'm glad I was able to lean into it. Let me know what you think down below. Do you like this darker, more natural walnut look? Thank you so much for watching. Hit that like button and I would appreciate a subscribe. Thank you so much.